Hi Stampers, this is Kim with Great Inspirations. Thank you so much for joining me today. I thought we would talk about making kids cards. I have a lot of little ones in my life and I send them cards for all kinds of occasions, but especially for their birthdays. I find that kids really enjoy getting mail, and not just mail that's addressed specifically to them. It just brings a smile to their faces. But other things, when you're making cards for kids, I mean, if you look at these cards, you could certainly send these cards to adults as well. But when I do make cards for kids, I try to keep some things in mind and try to include a few of my 5 elements that I always look for in cards for kids. And first of all, I feel that cards for children should be bright. Their colors should be bright and fun. Maybe you can incorporate the child's favorite colors or their school colors. But most of all, I think the cards should just be nice and bright and colorful. I also feel it's important that the cards reflect the child's interest. And one of those interests, of course, could be their favorite color. But it could also be, they're into sports, or maybe they like dinosaurs, or maybe unicorns, or maybe they're into art or dancing or nature. It's just something in the card that lets the child know, ooh, this card is for me and it's about me. I also think kids like cards that have an interesting shape, or maybe they have a movement or are interactive. And of course, kids really do tend to like images that are funny, cute, or silly. And as I mentioned before, they really like the personalization. This card is to me, and I can tell because, well, I'm turning 5, and oh, look, the number 5 is on there. Or, oh, look, my name is on this card. Or, oh, look, this card was addressed to me specifically. So I do think that just really makes the child's day and really makes them feel special. And, most of all, they just like receiving a card and knowing that someone thought of them, just like us adults when we receive a card from someone. It's always like, like they say, a hug in an envelope. Somebody thought of me today. So, with you now knowing my philosophy on making children's cards, then let's move on and talk about these specific cards. And as you can see, I did make envelopes. I'm trying to step my card making up a bit, so I made some matching envelopes to go with these cards. And these cards are what you call a flip-flop card. So rise and shine, it's your birthday, it's your birthday. And here's this one, rise and shine, you've got something to crow about, it's your birthday. So there, that's called the flip-flop card, and it does stand. And not only does it stand like this, where you can see both sides, and I know that's really hard to see in the video, but you can also bend it like this so the child can set it on their dresser or shelf and display it. And of course it will bend the other way and they can display the other side if they so desire. So let's move these out of the way, and I thought I'd just walk you through how to make the card base. It's really not that hard. It just takes some scoring, a little bit of scoring, and some cutting. And so I have a piece of cardstock here, and it is 6 1/4 by 5 1/2. And you don't have to worry about the measurements or anything like that because it will all be on my blog. And the corresponding blog post will be, the link to that will be found in the description of this video. So we're going to get the paper trimmer out, and we're going to start out using the scoring blade, which is the gray colored one, or the lighter color of the two. This will be the cutting blade, this is the scoring blade. And we are going to put this along the 6 1/4 inch side at the top. We're going to put it at 2 5/8. So that 2 5/8 is 1/2 plus an eighth. So we go to 1/2, and then we're going to move over 1, 2 little lines, and that is our 1/8. And then we're going to go from the top to 1 inch. And I usually do it a couple times just to get a really good score line. Then we're going to move to 3 and 3 5/8. Just one more inch down, so 3.5, and then 2 little lines, and that puts us at 3 1/8. We're going to go down to 1, and down to 1, and back up. And then we're going to flip it over with the other 6.5-inch side along the top. Move it to 2 5/8. And we're going to score that 1 inch. Then we're going to move it back over to the 3 5/8. And go down that 1 inch. Okay, so I know it might be hard to see, but we have 2 score lines here that are 1 inch apart, and 1 inch down each. And on the other end, 2 score lines that are 1 inch down and 1 inch apart. So now we're going to do some cutting. That means we'll need this darker blade. And we are going to just put it again with our 6 1/4, or it's just the 5.5. Hang on. No, it's a 6 1/4. Okay. We're going to put our 6 1/4 inch side in here and at 1 inch. And then we're going to move our cutting blade down to 1 inch because we're going to cut from 1 inch, and we're going to go down to 1 inch from the bottom, so that will be to 4.5. So from 1 inch to 4.5. Okay. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Just flip it over. And we're going to get this at 1 inch. We're going to go from 1 inch to 4.5. Okay. Now we're going to turn it, and this time the 5.5-inch side is along the top, and again we're going to go in at 1 inch, and we're going to go from 1 inch to 2 5/8. Go from 1 inch to 2.5, and then those 2 little marks passed. Okay, and then we're going to just flip it around, do the same thing. 1 inch. Start the cutting at 1 inch and go to 2 5/8. It's kind of hard for me to see where I'm going here. There we go. I probably got my head in the way. I think I got a little far, but that'll be okay. And now we're going to turn it. Let's not turn it. Let's scoot it and use the 1 inch on this side. Staying on the same side that we just cut. We want to start at 1 inch. Go from 1 to 2 5/8. And then we're going to turn it around because we have one more side left. We'll put it over at 1 inch, the 1 inch on this side. And then we're going to start at the 1 inch mark on our guide here and go to 2 5/8. And that's all the cutting and scoring. And I see right there, I need my little snips here. I didn't quite get to the corner on here, and that's okay, that happens. You just snip it. Same thing here. That did it. And I think these two over here are okay. So, we're going to fold these score lines, get my bone folder, and then we're going to fold, and it doesn't matter as long as you fold one back and one, actually one back and one the other way, or it doesn't really matter because you're going to end up, this card both ways really need to be burnished because it needs to be able to fold pretty easily or to move both ways. So it doesn't really matter mountain or valley, which one you do first or second. But there is your basic flip-flop card. Now, do you see how it doesn't quite want to go through? There's a solution to that. And a lot of it has to do with because we're not leaving any wiggle room. So in order to get a little wiggle room for that to pass through, I just take my snips and I cut off just a smidge, just that much. And I do it along all the edges. Just like that. And I do the same on this side, but as you can see, it makes this side that we cut go through much easier than this side. So we'll just trim this one a bit. Oops. There we go. And now it swings quite freely. So that's my little tip on how to get it to flip-flop more easily, so to speak. Now let's clear all this away. And that was my trash can popping open. Take a look again at these cards. And these cards, as you can see, I made with the Hey Chuck stamp set. And I've used that before, I know, but we'll take a quick look at it. Has the cute little images, some cute little sentiments. And I thought that was just really cute for a kid card, especially with the little skateboard. And that's why I put this guy here on a skateboard. And then this one, I don't know, I just think this little image is funny. Funny little rooster there. Now, as you can see, I left room here to sign a name, write a short message. I forgot to do that on this one. But I thought, you know what, that's okay. I can either write it on the envelope, stick a little note in, or just sign my name right here. But I just still think it's kind of cute. Now, I do have a tip for you for these envelopes, because as you can see, I have stamped the image and I colored it with Stampin' Blends, which are alcohol markers. And in order to prevent the alcohol ink from bleeding clear through, if you can look down in there, I don't know if I can get it, there you can see how it bled through, and it would have bled through onto here too. But all I did was I just took a piece of cardstock, scrap cardstock, stuck it in there where I had stamped the image, colored my image, and then removed the cardstock. And as you can see, the ink that would have bled through to the back of the envelope went no farther than the piece of cardstock. So that's my little tip on coloring with alcohol markers on envelopes. There are these cards again, and as I said, they do stand up. You know, they move, they stand up until the air conditioner comes on and the fan blows them down. But they do stand up. And as I said, you can stand it this way so the child can display it on their dresser or shelf. And then it also would fold back the other way, so if they want to display that side. And as I mentioned, all the measurements and the supplies I use for these cards will be found on my corresponding blog post. And also on that blog post, there is this diagram that will tell you how to score and cut your cardstock. And for those of you that don't like to flip your cardstock around, I've given you the exact measurements of where to start and where to stop, where to start again, and where to stop. Thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, stamp happy!